Thanks for this opportunity to present. You can hear me, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, so 2 weeks ago, I was at one of these Refresh teaching events, and then we were sent into these breakout rooms. And then I thought, oh, wow, this is kind of exactly what we want to do, or what we usually do in this course that we have with 100 students. And I thought, well, we should try this. And we just got it positive, but it was quite a bit of preparation that went into it. And the idea is maybe if you want to do this as well, I can give you some of the pointers of what we figured out, what you need to do, and how you can sort of set this up. So this is coming from a Zoom novice, and I hope I'm not boring you, but that I'm talking also to other Zoom novices who can benefit from this. Beforehand, many thanks to Dave Rüffel. I think he got a lot of emails from me and from the people who helped out in this session, because they all needed to change their status on Zoom and get different licenses and so on. But in the end, it all worked out. So I'm going to share my screen now and kind of walk you through this. Okay, and now I should go to presentation mode. Okay. And turn on my laser pointer. Voila. Okay. So the we have the challenge that we tried to solve was to transfer this multi-coach in-class group exercise to a Zoom environment. And this is in a course called Genetics, Genomics, Bioinformatics that we teach in the biology department. We have about 100 students, fourth semester students enrolled in this course. Usually about 80 of the students really attend class. And that was the case yesterday as well. We have an hour and a half time, which is sort of corresponds to 2 normal lecture hours. We asked the students before they come into class traditionally. We asked them to do self-study on Moodle, and their assignment is to design a genetic study on a particular topic. So this is one of the skills that we really want to push in this course. And we have noticed that students usually struggle with kind of being creative and designing their own studies. So we decided, okay, we're going to put that session pretty much exactly in the middle of the course along the semester. And so these students are then assigned to groups of 5. And then in non-corona times, everybody gets together in the classroom. We have all the students there, and we have 6 to 8 coaches with different backgrounds, from Hilfsassistenten to professors. After a short intro, the students then start to work together in groups to sort of consolidate their individual study designs that they had into one group design. And now this is the part where it kind of gets tricky to do this, because what is really nice when we run this in class is that the coaches can walk around. One of the coaches can raise their head and say, here, this group has a question on Drosophila genetics. You know your way around this. Why don't you come over? Or you see that some of the students are struggling a little bit, and then you go visit them and you say, hey, don't you have any questions, and so on. So this idea of having groups that work together and then having free-floating coaches that move between these different groups, and that was what we want to simulate. And then at the end, everybody gets back together, and two of the groups present the design that they came up with in that time, and the rest of the students then hand up or load up their designs on Moodle. So that is kind of what we are aiming or to replicate in Zoom. And so this is kind of an outline where I try to represent for the Zoom novices how this works. So we set up a Zoom meeting where everybody joins, and we have a host, we have some of the coaches, which have to be co-hosts in this setting, and then we have the students. And so yesterday we had 80 students, 60 coaches, and one host. And then there are some peculiarities which maybe I just didn't figure out how to do this correctly, but it seemed we couldn't find a solution that the coaches could jump directly to the students and choose which room they want to jump to. But they can jump once they're in their own breakout room, which we called Lehrerzimmer. Once they're there, they can then jump from this breakout room into the other breakout rooms. So what we then did was to assign all the students in their groups. Each one has their own breakout room. We then yesterday had 17 breakout rooms, and a total of 40 or 50 breakout rooms I think are technically possible. I don't know if Dave knows. Maybe we can talk about this afterwards. I think it's 40 or 50, so that I think is plenty. And so once you are in these breakout rooms, then the coaches, they can jump between different breakout rooms. They can leave individual groups alone and work by themselves. What we asked the students to do was that one of them shares a document or a PowerPoint that they are working on together, shares that on the screen, so that when you move as a coach, you visit them in their room, you can immediately see this document. So you don't have to do anything special to then share the screen, discuss this. That screen is always up, and then you can see what they're up to. You can ask them questions. What we found also that was kind of difficult was to communicate between these breakout rooms. There's this possibility to ask for help for students who are in the breakout room with a button, but then that message only goes to the host. And then if the host is sort of hopping around talking to other groups, you then always get these messages: somebody raised their hand, somebody has a question, but you're in the middle of talking to somebody. So that is not a very good mechanism, and you have no way of chatting with the people, with the other coaches, because the chat is always local to the breakout room. So what we did was to run a separate chat on Moodle that we used as a communication channel, and where the teaching assistant who was monitoring this, who was in the Lehrerzimmer, and if a question came in, she could then tell the coaches that were available, you know, there is a question in room 3, can you go and there and help them? Okay. And then at the end, you give people notice, okay, time is up, we're all going to meet. We figured out if there were volunteers who wanted to present, and then we got back into the main meeting room, and there then the students from the different groups, from 2 groups, they then shared their screen and they presented their studies, and they then got feedback from the coaches, and some of the students asked questions. And so all in all, it worked surprisingly well for having done this the first time. I have sort of made another slide with sort of a lot of organizational points. I'm going to try to quickly kind of skip through them and point out the most important ones. I think this is more something maybe people want to look at afterwards individually. So one thing that we found out was the co-host can jump from the breakout room to breakout room, but only from their breakout room themselves, and to begin with. And that the coaches that do this jumping, they need to be co-hosts. which also means they have to have a licensed account. And we had some teaching assistants. They had to then get an @ETHZ instead of @student.ethz account, and that Dave organized this all for us. The host needs to assign all these people as co-hosts, so that the coaches as co-hosts, so that they have this ability to jump around. And in our experience, that only worked if you were on, we're going through this portal, the ethz.zoom.us, and not through the app that you have. There seem to be different things that are accessible. You can also do this in the meeting through the participant window. One feature that is kind of nice, but that requires a lot of discipline, is that you can pre-assign the students to the breakout rooms by uploading a CSV file, again on this ETH Zoom portal. But if you get anything a little bit wrong, one space, there's a cursive somewhere, the whole thing fails. So it took a while to get this all working. The chat function I already talked about. We had problems with the Zoom chat function not behaving the way we wanted it, so we had a parallel chat running. And I talked about this idea of having a document shared by the students in their breakout rooms, so you immediately see what they're working on. The things to improve or keep in mind is you really need to communicate with the students well in advance, and you need to know what you're talking about, which in our case was a kind of difficult because we didn't know many of the things to begin with. So we had lots of emails going back and forth, trying to sort this out, requests, so can you change my Zoom ID? I need to do this, I need to do that. Would be great. So with Moodle courses now, in our department are really standard. Most of them have a very similar look and feel. I kind of compare this to a rental car, where you get in a rental car and you know where to put the key and how to drive off and how the radio works. And the goal is, it would be nice if our Zoom sessions are at least within the department or within a particular semester, have the similar touch and feel, that the students who go there know what to expect. Because I had then students writing the chat, oh, we always used to do it this way in that course, and would be nice if it's consistent and the students can focus on the content and not on the mechanisms. But that's sort of something that we have to work on as teachers. I highly recommend doing a test run a day before the actual meeting with all the coaches to try out all these features, so you don't spend all your time trying to figure out Zoom. There were a lot of surprising behaviors that I hadn't foreseen, so really very useful to do this. Voila. Communicate to the students how that they need a consistent Zoom ID, because otherwise these assignments don't work. One feature that I would like to use, I haven't figured out yet, maybe somebody can give me feedback on this. There seems to be a possibility to send students to the waiting room, and that waiting room then automatically closes once the class starts, so that if anybody drops out of a meeting, they immediately come back into the meeting. They're not stuck in the waiting room. You don't have to pick them up there. But on the other hand, you have then that privacy at the beginning before the class, so you can do last organizational discussions between the co-hosts. And my other thing is that I've done like a few online normal Zoom sessions for lectures now, and it always takes longer than you think, just because there's this sort of friction that's introduced by the technology. Voila. But overall, I think it worked really well. The students were quite happy, and I think the students were actually more effective and moved along faster than they usually did when they're in class, just because they're in their room, it's quiet. There are no distractions. There's no cross-group chatting. So I was quite surprised about how well this then in the end worked out. Thanks a lot, and sorry, I hope I didn't go all too long.